Welcome. Welcome to members, friends, and visitors. It is good to be together today. I'm Reverend Sue Browning. I serve as the minister for the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Easton and for the Unitarian Universalists of the Chester River. Today we come together for a special service. Today is a service, it's a long tradition in the Easton congregation. It's called Music Sunday. And the service today, our service leader will be Ellen Barry Grundon. Ellen has been the music director at Easton for a while, and she has put together a special service to help us think about music in times of trouble. So gratitude to Ellen, to the many musicians who are participating in today's service, gratitude for those who are reading, and to the tech team who actually takes all these ideas that we have and actually make sure they can show up on the internet. So gratitude to so many people for this morning. Unitarian Universalism is a faith that is grounded in a belief of deep inclusion. Think about what that means. It can mean a lot of different things, but it means that everyone has not only inherent worth and dignity, but that we promote it and we celebrate all of who we are. It's a place where we come together to look at our values, that we ask everybody to think deeply about our values, and then we go out in the world, inspired to live into that aspiration of who we can be, both individually and as a people. If you have questions about either of our congregation, if you have questions for me, please be sure to ask. Track us down through email, through the office. Even though we're meeting virtually, we would love to get to know you. And if you're a member and you've been here for a while and you still have questions, please track everybody down. It's important that we stay connected in these times. So as we enter our time of worship, I ask you to center yourself. Bring yourself into this space, into this sacred space that is created as we gather together. What's emerging for you? What do you have that comes with you today? Where are you? What have you experienced of late? Maybe it's a weariness, maybe it's concerns, a new perspective, a new place you're finding hope. Bring it here. Bring us together as we come to honor the music and the different ways that we connect with our soul. Come, let us worship.
We light the chalice this morning to the words of Dr. Albert Schweitzer, who, in addition to being a physician and a humanitarian and a theologian and a philosopher, was also a noted organist, pianist, and musicologist. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us.
so welcome. Pope is by Siegfried Sassoon. He was a very famous World War I era poet. He was strongly against the war, and this poem was written, they think, celebrating the men in the trenches, of which he had been one and had been wounded. So this is Everyone Sang by Siegfried Sassoon. Everyone suddenly burst out singing, and I was filled with such delight, as prisoned birds must find in freedom, winging wildly across the white orchards and dark green fields, on, and out of sight. Everyone's voice was suddenly lifted, and beauty came like the setting sun. My heart was shaken with tears, and horror drifted away. Oh, but everyone was a bird, and the song was wordless. The singing will never be done.
Thank you, Dick and Doug. Now it's time for Thoughts for All Ages. Actually, it's the first time for Thoughts for All Ages because we're going to do it a little differently today. I'm going to give some thoughts for all ages, then we're going to have some music, then I'm going to give some more thoughts for all ages, we're going to have some more music. You get the idea. So younger learners, stay with me, and everybody else too, please. Lots of books with me today. 3 of them are picture books that I got from the library, and one is my book. It's written by a man named Jon Meacham, whose job it is to write about history. And he wrote this book with a friend of his who lives in Nashville, Tennessee, where he lives. That man's name is Tim McGraw. He's a singer. It has lots and lots and lots of stories in it, many more words than pictures. But what's interesting is that all of the people and the songs that we're going to hear about in those picture books are also in Mr. Meacham and Mr. McGraw's book. You may have noticed at the beginning of the service, there was a really colorful painting of a man playing the piano. That was a man named Edward Kennedy Ellington, whom most people know as Duke. And I was playing a song called Come Sunday while you were looking at that painting. This book about him, like the painting, has lots and lots of bright colors, which is why I love it so much. And it tells the story of Duke Ellington's life, which began in 1899, so before the turn of the last century, when he was born in Washington, D.C. He was a piano player who, by the time he was a teenager, was out making money playing the piano. And then he formed a band, but he was still playing the piano and conducting the band. Then he moved to New York City, and the band grew into an orchestra, the Duke Ellington Orchestra, but he was still playing the piano as well. And he wrote songs. Well, he wrote music. He wrote lots and lots of songs, but also a suite, which is bigger than a song. The suite was called Black, Brown, and Beige, and one of the songs in that suite was Come Sunday. This is my very favorite picture from the book, because you can see where he's playing the piano and he's conducting the orchestra, and as they play, the music comes out and it gets bigger and more colorful as it goes into the air. Another book here, it's called When Marian Sang, and it's about a woman named Marian Anderson. The illustrations in this book are not brightly colored. They are black, brown, and beige, all colors from Mr. Ellington's suite. I love what it says about Marian's beautiful voice at the beginning of this book. It was her range of notes that caused all the commotion. With one breath, she sounded like rain sprinkling high notes in the morning sun, and with the next, she was thunder resounding deep in a dark sky. When Marian started singing, she sang in her church choir. There's a picture of her there. And that's what she wanted to do for the rest of her life, was just sing for people. And she had a beautiful, beautiful voice, and many people were very eager to hear her sing. But some people did not want to let her sing, and it had nothing to do with her voice. It simply had to do with the color of her skin. One time when this happened was in the year 1939. Howard University in Washington, D.C. wanted to have a concert where Marian Anderson was singing, and it needed to be in a very big place because they expected hundreds of people. So they chose a building called Constitution Hall. Constitution Hall was sponsored by a group called the Daughters of the American Revolution. And their policy at the time was that only white people could perform in that building, so they told her no. Well, in the year 1939, the president was a man named Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and the first lady, his wife, was a woman named Eleanor Roosevelt. And she happened to be a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution, so she heard about this, and she was so upset that she resigned her membership in that society right away. But she also decided that she was going to find a place for Marian to sing. She knew it needed to be a place where there could be lots of people, so she talked to her husband. And she said, maybe we should have it outside. He said, I don't care if she sings from the top of the Washington Monument, as long as she sings. Well, she didn't sing from the top of the Washington Monument. She sang at the Lincoln Memorial. Here is the picture of her singing that day. And here is the picture of the crowd, which wasn't hundreds of people. It was 75,000.
Genius draws no color line. And so it is fitting that Marian Anderson should raise her voice in tribute to the noble Lincoln whom mankind will ever honor. Miss Marian Anderson.
Wow, I'd heard that story about Marian Anderson and the Lincoln Memorial so many times, but I'd never seen the footage before I went looking for it for this service. Breathtaking. Next, we're going to have some songs about changing one's situation, and about looking forward, looking ahead to better times, to better places, sometimes even magical ones. First, Ampersand is going to play and sing Times Are Getting Hard, Boys, a song that was first published in 1927, but has been done in many versions over time. This one, you can almost feel the grit of the Dust Bowl circumstances that are leading people to need to move, to head west for a better life. Beth describes the feel of the song as kind of bittersweet. There are goodbyes in there, but there's a great resilience in the fact that people are moving forward to change their circumstance. After that, Amen will play a very familiar song, which has a soaring melody line with the promise of a place where the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true.
Almost gone. Time's gonna get
So now we're just going to do a short announcement and invite folks to give to our outreach collection. During these times of virtual services, everything's a little bit different. How we gather is different, how we have music and message and communications, and how we give is a little bit different, but the basics are all still there. So during this time, I do invite everyone to continue to read your newsletter, and if you've got something going on, please submit it to the newsletter. Make sure we get it on the calendar so that we can make sure we're doing that work of inclusion and making sure everybody knows what's going on. And as I said, we are finding ways to give during this time of the COVID virus and virtual services. And we're going to do our June outreach collection today. It's a long tradition of the congregation to have a partner every month and to give away the plate. Now the plate's a little bit different, we're not passing it, but we're going to share our donations today with a group called Mir Sateh. And Mir Sateh is a small group of veterinary doctors, technicians, and social workers, and they help with the care of dairy cattle and animals in an impoverished village in India. It sounds really far away, but we have a personal connection to this group. Dr. Audrey Barker, she was a member of this congregation. She's Rita and Don Barker's daughter. She started this group. And we've had members go over and visit. We have a connection and we have an opportunity to support an important effort. So what your donations would do is they would help Audrey and others provide medications and veterinary care. What they're trying to do is increase the milk production, and that helps get protein to children and helps provide independence for women. So it's a great opportunity to exercise our values of generosity. I think it's also a reminder of who is our neighbor. As Unitarian Universalists, it calls us into remembering that neighbor isn't bounded by geography, but it's all of those where we can extend our care and compassion. And this is that opportunity today. So how will you give? You can either mail a check into the fellowship. It goes to P.O. Box 1162 in Easton. Just make sure to mark your check that it's for the outreach collection, or we have a donate button now on the web. Just follow the prompts and you'll be able to direct your funds to Mir Sateh. So thank you for considering this charity. Thank you for your generosity.
The days of our
And we shift now in the service to our time of joys and sorrows. It's one of the ways we build community is by sharing our personal joys and sorrows. And in this time of virtual services, the way you share them is you email them to me by noon on Friday, and then we will include them in the service. So before we actually light the candle and share the joys and sorrows, we begin with reflection. Reflection today through song.
We've had stories about people who write songs and people who play songs and people who sing songs. Now, we're going to have the story of a song. The song is We Shall Overcome, which I'm sure many of you know. It's also about changing lives. But instead of it being just about changing my life or changing your life, it's about changing all of our lives. Mr. Meacham tells us that the history of this song is complicated and circuitous. Scholars can identify 7 antecedents, he says, or, to use a metaphor, tributaries that flow into the river of this song. The closest of those 7 was a song called I Will Overcome, and that changed in the 1950s to We Shall Overcome, when it became one of the most famous, if not the most famous song of the civil rights movement. One of the people who sang the song was a man named Pete Seeger. When someone asked him, "Did you change those words from will to shall?" he said, "Well, could have been me, but it might have been Septima Clark, who was an educator in Tennessee." He said he thought it was probably Ms. Clark because she liked shall instead of will because it opened up the voice and sang better. Mr. McGraw points out that one of the things that's wonderful about this song is that it's kind of in a formula. Every single verse has a thought, and then we sing, "Deep in my heart, I do believe," and then we say the thought again. So, what's wonderful about that is that when people were out together singing the song, if somebody had a new thought that wasn't already one of the verses, they could just yell the thought out, and everybody knew what to do. Sing the thought again, sing the thought again, sing deep in my heart, and then sing the thought again. The beginning of this book tells about all those tributaries, but we won't look at that right now. We're going to start in the 50s when it became We Shall Overcome. We have people marching here against bad laws. But sometimes people didn't march to protest the bad laws. Sometimes they just sat still because there were restaurants where people couldn't eat because of the color of their skin, kind of like what happened with Marian Anderson and Constitution Hall. So they sat to protest and sang, "We are not afraid." Then a group called the Freedom Singers traveled 50,000 miles in 9 months all over the United States, to people's homes, to concert halls, to elementary schools, jails, high schools, rallies, and they sang We Shall Overcome in 40 different states. We are not alone. Probably the biggest crowd that ever sang this together was at an event in 1963 called the March on Washington. A lot of you probably know that because of a very famous speech that happened there when Dr. King talked about a dream he had. Look, it's the Lincoln Memorial where Marian Anderson sang. We'll walk hand in hand. We can't do that right now, of course, so we're not going to sing that verse today. Then the song traveled the world. It traveled to India, East Germany, South Korea, Czechoslovakia, Northern Ireland, Bangladesh, China, the Middle East, South America, wherever people worked for a better life. We'll live in peace. Today, people still struggle against hatred, for freedom, against poverty, for fairness, against despair, and for hope. We still sing. We sing to declare that, yes, we are all human beings, deserving of respect, sharing the same planet, the same future together. Another thing that Mr. McGraw pointed out is that because this is a folk song, that means that when you hear it, you want to sing it too. So, now we're going to do that. And if you have a UU hymnal at home, don't use it because the verses that are in the hymnal are not all of the same ones that we're going to sing from the many, 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 many different verses that go with this song. "55 years ago today, Lyndon and Lady Bird Johnson hosted a Festival of the Arts at the White House. Among the guests were visual artists, filmmakers, and many, many musicians, including Marian Anderson and Duke Ellington, who, along with his orchestra, performed Come Sunday. President Johnson had this to say: "Your art is not a political weapon, yet much of what you do is profoundly political. For you seek out the common pleasures and visions, the terrors and the cruelties of man's day on this planet. And I would hope that you would help dissolve the barriers of hatred and ignorance, which are the source of so much of our pain and danger. In this way, you work toward peace. Not only the peace which is simply the absence of war, but the peace which liberates man to reach for the finest fulfillment of his spirit." Next, Carol will read a poem about how singing can help us in times of trouble. It was written by the same author of a hymn which is very familiar to UUs, Lift Every Voice and Sing. After that, the choir will sing an anthem by the wonderful composer Mark Miller, the text for which was taken from a poem that was etched on the wall of a hiding place in Germany where Jews had gone to flee the genocide of the Holocaust. It speaks to faiths which are strong enough to withstand even the most hopeless of circumstances.
The Gift to Sing by James Weldon Johnson. Sometimes the mist overhangs my path, and blackening clouds about me cling. But oh, I have a magic way to turn the gloom to cheerful day. I softly sing. And if the way grows darker still, shadowed by sorrow's somber wing, with glad defiance in my throat, I pierce the darkness with a note and sing and sing. I brood not over the broken past, nor dread whatever time may bring. No nights are dark, no days are long, while in my heart there swells a song, and I can sing.
I believe in the sun. I believe in the sun, even when it's not shining. I believe in the sun. I believe in the sun. Not shining. I believe in love. I believe in love. Even when I don't feel it. I believe in love.
Miss the choir. I know a lot of us during the last several months have seen a lot of those videos. People singing, in some instances dancing from parts all over the place, put together into one presentation, and we've enjoyed so many of them. And I think that unless you've actually participated in one of those, you can't possibly imagine how challenging it is to record your own part for one of those. Choral singing is a matter of blending, of cueing off the people around you, and it's supposed to be a communal activity. Singing all by yourself with nothing but a little piano track in your ear is really disconcerting. The choir worked really, really hard to put that together for you, and I want to make sure they know how grateful I am for all of their efforts. Also, many choir members in the previous weeks have participated in virtual services. Sometimes you haven't seen them, but you've heard them. So I'd especially like to thank song leaders Patty Rubin, Dave Moore, and Bojana Limparska. In a minute, Philip Dutton from the Chester River congregation will sing and play, although you'll only hear him, a song that gave a lot of hope to a lot of people during the Second World War when they were separated from the people that they missed very much. So until we meet again in the same space, may you find the music inside you to carry you through. We extinguish the chalice today with the words of Richard S. Gilbert, "A new song, a new harmony." By our presence here with one another, hearing the harmony that is the music of the spheres, may some of the harshness and the discord of our human lives be transmuted into music. A new song in our hearts may there be, and a new harmony in our beings, so that we shall return to our several duties with fresh courage and with eagerness and with rejoicing. May it be so. And may you always believe in the light, even when you can't see it.
We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Keep smiling through, just like you always do, till the blue skies drive the dark clouds far away. Won't you please say hello to the folks that I know? Tell them I won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as you saw me go, I was singing this song. We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Won't you please say hello to the folks that I know? Tell them I won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as you saw me go, I was singing this song.